Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a good few times before. These guys are a relative newcomer to the Scottish beer scene and they seem to be focusing more on kind of sessionable, drinkable beers, and the ones that I've tried so far have been pretty nice actually, so it's always good to keep an eye out for the new things that these guys are releasing, and it's a brewery that I think we will need to keep an eye on going forward. So hopefully the beer we're going to look at today is another good one. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head through to Edinburgh, to Leith to be specific, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Newbarns Brewery. So this particular beer is simply called Supreme. It comes in at 5% ABV, and this one is a pale ale. So yeah, really looking forward to trying this. The very first beer that I tried from Newbarns was a pale ale, in fact. And I think that one was the Citra Equinaut, if I remember correctly. But this is one that I bought through at Beer Hive in Edinburgh. And it is supposed to be a pretty nice one. This is another one that was recommended to me by Fraser through there. So big shout out to him once again. And if you find yourself in Edinburgh, make sure that you go and check out Beer Hive. It's a really, really nice little beer shop. As I said earlier, very nice to return to Newbarns, particularly the style where I started with these guys. So let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Newbarns Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly at the moment because I am at home in the motherland of Scotland. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Newbarns Brewery then. So Newbarns Brewery, as I've told you before, was founded in 2020, and these guys are based in Leith, which is kind of in the northeastern part, I guess we could say, of Edinburgh, out towards the water essentially. But the four friends behind this brewery are Emma McIntosh, Gordon Mackenzie, Johnny Hamilton, and then Freddie Biaksith. So Gordon and Emma are a couple, and they moved down to London from the east coast of Scotland back in 2012. Now, they hadn't actually planned on becoming brewers, but Gordon started working at Siren in 2013, while Emma began working at Kernel in early 2014. A little bit prior to that, though, they met Freddie in 2012, just before he'd begun working at Beavertown Brewery, where he was the sales account manager. Johnny also worked for Beavertown as well, and he was in charge of their Tempest project, which, if memory serves me correctly, was the big barrel aging thing that they used to do. I'm not sure if they still do it, in fact, but yeah, there were some really, really good beers came out of that back in the day. But Gordon later went on to work at the Kernel Brewery as well. But as you can see, this brewery has a very, very good bunch of people behind it, with a great pedigree, of course. But in 2018, Gordon and Emma decided that it was time to return to Scotland, and they'd always wanted to start up their own brewery. But by the following year, Freddie and Johnny had joined them in Edinburgh, and it was time to get started on getting Newbarns Brewery ready. So they got it all up and running. They bought all of their equipment, they got a premises, and away they go. But the branding of the brewery is inspired by a bunch of old beer mats that dated from between the 1940s and the 1980s, and Emma's dad actually found these at an auction, and then this really inspired her to go for it on the branding front. But apparently these guys are going to focus on the more sessionable styles of beer, such as lagers and pale ales and stuff like that. Probably my favourite beers that I've had from them so far would be the oat lager, which I thought was very, very nice. These guys are very capable in the Pilsner category as well, I hasten to add. And the best beer perhaps, and I think quite a lot of people would agree with this, is the plain dark beer. That's a big massive imperial stout, and that's definitely worth trying if you see it. But these guys do some really, really good sessioners, and a look forward to seeing what they're going to do over the next little while in terms of big boys as well. But I think those ones are going to be kind of rarities, if you like. I think those they are going to continue to focus on the more sessionable side of things. But as of November 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 40 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that's all I can really tell you about them for the moment. So yeah, like I said, a very up and coming Scottish brewery. In my opinion, these guys are doing some really, really good beers. So if you see their beers in the shop, then they are definitely worth checking out. So yeah, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork on this beer before we open it up. As you can see, this one is a little bit different from what we've seen from Newbarns Brewery before, but you can see that this beer does have a lot of the same things. There's the sort of beer mat style thing, the Brewers of Leith. There is the Newbarns text. I still love the camera on this phone. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's awesome. But yeah, as we said earlier, this one is a 5% pale ale. I'm not sure exactly what kind of pale ale it's going to be, but it looks like it might well just be a kind of more West Coasty type pale ale. So it says water, hops, yeast and barley. No mention of oats or wheat in this one. So I think it will be a more kind of West Coasty type pale ale, this one. 440ml can, as you tend to always get from Newbarns Brewery. I'm not sure exactly how much I paid for this one. I'm not sure exactly how much I paid for it in Beer Hive. It might have been in the region of £4, and that seems reasonable because I think I paid about £13 for 4 beers. So yeah, £4, let's just say that. So that's somewhere in the region of about €5, 50 Swedish kroner, and I guess, you know, that's going to be like, what, about $6 American, something like that. So yeah, that gives you an idea for those of you watching across the world. But this one was canned on the 18th of October 2021, and we're drinking on the 10th of November. So it's still pretty fresh actually, because these guys do need a little bit of time just to kind of settle and mellow out and things like that. So good condition. A 5% pale ale, this one. The Supreme Pale Ale from Newbarns Brewery in Leith through in Edinburgh. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm really curious to see what this is going to have in store for us. So, out and into the glass. Feels like a wee while since I've sat down and actually filmed a review at the moment. I was away over the weekend and things, and I think I didn't film for a couple of days before that actually. But it seems like a wee while since I've sat down in front of the drum kit and done a kind of sit down review for you actually. So yeah, nice to be at it again. But anyway, as you can see, this one looks very, very nice. So before the head disappears on this beer, it's poured with, I would say, just under 2/3 finger of a frothy, kind of creamy head there. I don't know if I would describe that as perfect white, but you can see the bubbles on that are very, very nice. It is just starting to fade away to be a kind of nice, thin, foamy layer. But when we shine the light through this one, it's got a lovely kind of bright, pale, golden straw colour to it, in fact. Now, remember that the colour of your beer depends on, 1, the type of malts that you use. This determines the magnitude of the colour, the EBC rating in other words. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in, of course, can affect that. But when it comes to a pale ale like this, we don't need to care about those latter 2 variables more often than not. But yeah, in terms of the haze level on this one, it's certainly got a little bit of a naturally haze to it. But you can kind of tell from the appearance of this beer that it is pretty much a kind of more West Coast type pale ale, this one. But lovely kind of bright colour. Let me just put my hands behind it, because I've noticed that the light, when I put my hand behind it, the big light that I've got behind the camera, it does actually show you the natural colour of the beer very nicely if we just put the hand behind it. So yeah, lovely looking beer, this one. Pretty much what you'd expect from a more kind of West Coasty type pale ale. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we go with this one then. Curious about this beer. Ooh, that does smell really nice. It's a very straight shooting beer, this one. There's nothing surprising about it. But I have to say, I have been getting a little bit more kind of into the pale ales in recent times. I remember back in the day, I was never a big fan of, you know, kind of pale ales. I was pretty much a kind of, you know, go big or go home. For me, I wasn't really keen on, trying anything that wasn't, that was below an IPA on the scale. But, Newbarns, and I think in Kernel as well, are one of the one or two of the breweries who have kind of convinced me about that. And I guess since I've gotten into lagers a bit more over the last couple of years again, that's also kind of helped me get into the more sessionable stuff. So I really like reviewing the more kind of sessionable, drinkable things as well. But aroma-wise, this is very, very nice. So I'm going to say, with this one, it does come across with the first impression that you get of this, it's got a very nice smooth malty backbone to it. If I was smelling this blind, I would actually guess that this had a little bit of oaty character or something in it, but it could be something along the lines of like a bit of Golden Promise or something like that, because it does actually have a wee bit of a smell that I've picked out from a good few New England pale ales and IPAs, and a lot of them like to use that Golden Promise kind of thing. So just as an overall kind of view, malty backbone, this one is lovely and smooth and bready. The hoppy green component isn't too pungent, but you've also got a lovely juicy fruity kind of thing to it as well. So it's got everything you'd expect. But let's kind of break down the aroma of the beer just a little bit more and examine it properly. So yeah, backbone of this beer, you get a nice little bit of bread crust out of it. You can definitely smell that. A little bit of a kind of fresh white bread crust in there. On top of that, some smooth kind of white bread, of course, as well. It is like a kind of hedgehog roll, actually. That's probably a good reference for Scottish people watching this review. So a hedgehog roll is the big, fresh, thick thing that you get out of the bakers in Asda's and Tesco's and stuff like that over here. I'm not sure how good a kind of reference that is for folk watching abroad, but if you just think about a nice, crisp, crusty roll that you'll get out of or big, crisp, crusty bread that you'll get out of the bakers, then this is kind of what you're getting out of this one, actually. So on top of that, though, on top of the kind of white bread and the bread crust, there is a wee bit of a kind of biscuity note to this one. And again, I suspect Golden Promise. It almost gives you a little bit of that kind of smooth, oaty type character. So you do get a bit of that almost kind of oaty smoothness out of this one. It's like a little bit of a kind of slightly dry, slightly sweet oaty character. But there certainly is a wee bit of a kind of sweetness to this one. Almost a cross between a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type thing, and also a wee bit of the kind of McVitie's digestive type vibe. So there's a good little bit of that going on in this beer. But the malty base is pretty straightforward, and it gives you kind of everything you want. I don't remember exactly how the last pale ale that I had from Newbarns was. I know that was I remember that was a good beer and really enjoying it. I think I bought that one at Valhalla's Goat through in Glasgow, Citra Equinaut, if memory serves me correctly. So that was one of the reasons why I chose to get this one, actually, just to get another pale ale from them and see what it was like again. But yeah, there's certainly a wee bit of a McVitie's digestive and a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original type thing in the middle of the nose with this one. So on the hoppy side of the beer then, let's look at the green component first. So on the green component, I think this one, there's a teeny wee bit of earthiness in this, but not a lot. There is a good little bit of floral aromaticity. Now, I would say that it's quite a reserved floral aromaticity. It's not overly pungent and spicy or anything like that. It does come across as quite smooth and a little bit kind of wetter and things. So yeah, absolutely a little bit of that going on. But it does at the same time smell quite fresh. At the front of the nose, you do have a wee bit of a kind of a lighter grassy sort of thing, and it's got a wee bit of that. It has got a wee bit of that kind of zesty. It's got a wee bit of a kind of zesty floral, a kind of zesty grassy type vibe to it as well. Actually, there's something familiar about the hops in this. I'd be curious to know which hop it is. In fact, I think it's. I really don't know. It could be a little bit of like Equinaut or something like that. I think it's Equinaut and maybe something else. Maybe like maybe a little bit. I don't think it's. Maybe Equinaut and a little bit of Simcoe or something like that. There's just something really familiar about these hops. But on the fruity side of things, you do get a little bit of a tropical note in this. There is a wee bit of a kind of smooth mango-y type vibe to the beer. Maybe one or two little hints of apricot and stuff like that for sure. But underneath, you do get a kind of, I get quite an oily, there's a bit of an oily limey character to this one. It really does have quite a nice little bit of zestiness to it. So yeah, bit of mango, bit of a dry kind of apricot-y note, maybe a bit of pineapple as well, and then for me some nice kind of juicy limey notes. So I think maybe something along the lines of like Idaho 7, Simcoe, maybe Eldorado, something like this, along with a little bit of Equinox, but it could be a bit of Citra as well, in fairness, because Citra is going to give you a bit of that zestiness. So the big grassy zestiness out of this one, but there is a good wee bit of kind of lime in this one for me as well. So yeah, it could be. It does come across as quite an interesting one, this. So take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, as I always say. But I think it's about time that we have a taste of this one and see how we go. So this one is the Supreme, a paleo coming in at 5% ABV from Newbarns Brewery in Leith through in Edinburgh. Let's have a taste of this one then and see how we go. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Pretty damn solid once again. Yeah, it's really solidly done beer, this. You can't really ask for much more from a paleo. You want something that's nice and drinkable, just has a wee bit of bite to it, and this one delivers on all fronts. So once again, a big thumbs up to Newbarns for this. So where do we start here then? I guess just where we always do. I don't know why I said that. So yeah, I'm just going to say straight away, this is a really nice, solid paleo from Newbarns. It's got a lovely malty smoothness to it, good little bit of kind of hoppy zip and things, and just a wee bit of juicy fruit. It's got everything you would want from the style. And like I said, these guys know what they're doing with the more sessionable type things. So yeah, let's just break this down as we always do then. So, malty backbone of this beer then, straight away across the kind of middle third of your palate, you can feel a wee bit of that kind of crusty, bread crusty sort of thing that goes across the middle third and the back third of your palate. And I really like how the beer goes about its business in that particular regard. So on top of that, you've got a lovely kind of smooth, white bready character to this one. Now it's actually, the bread in this one's quite interesting because it comes across as quite like a dry sort of white bread. So on top of that bread crust there, you can just feel that sort of dry but slightly dense white bready character out of this one, and it does give you a bit of dryness the further you go out into the aftertaste with this beer. It is a very straight shooting one in many ways, but I think it goes about its business really nicely, and you can't ask for much more than that, to be honest. So if we focus on the middle third of your palate then, so as we said, we've got the bread crust, the white bready notes, then down the kind of middle line of your tongue, you've got a little bit of a kind of, it does give you an impression of that slightly oaty character down the middle kind of trench in your tongue, if you like. So you do get a bit of that almost kind of slightly dry and slightly sweet oaty character, but we know this only has barley malt in it. It doesn't have malted oats or anything like that in it. So I think I've got a feeling there might just be some golden promise in this, because there is just a wee bit of that kind of New Englandy type thing in this one. The reason I say that is from Apex Brewing over in Sweden. Their beers all have this similar thing in the middle of them. Actually, they love a bit of golden promise malt at Apex Brewing, so you get that right away with this beer. Absolutely, I'm almost certain that that's golden promise. But yeah, on top of that kind of golden promise oaty type thing down the middle line of your tongue, you can feel there's a little circle almost right in the dead centre of your palate, and you can feel underneath there is a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original kind of note to the beer. So a little bit of that Werther's Original kind of butter candy, butterscotchy type thing. Then right in the dead centre of your palate, just a teeny tiny little bit of caramel. But as you move out of the dead centre of your palate towards the extremities of that middle third of your tongue, then you start to get some nice kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity notes coming out of the beer, and I really like how that goes together for sure. So yeah, that's a solid beer in terms of its That's a solid beer in terms of its kind of biscuity and barley malty notes, I have to say. So thumbs up to Newbarns for that. Let's focus on the back third of your palate then. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up there. You can feel that little bit more of a bread crusty note. But into the back third of your palate, you can feel that the bread crusty elements on the base of the tongue, they become a little bit more intense and a little bit more kind of grainy and dry. On top of that, the white bready note again becomes a little bit grainier and drier, if you like. But then on top of that, you can feel this slightly taller, kind of yeasty sort of thing coming out of the beer. So I do like how that goes together as well. In this one, you can feel that the yeast is, it almost is like a kind of doughy, slightly woody, dry, bready character that that comes out of this one. So yeah, I do like how that pieces together in this beer as well. The yeasty note you can feel on the back third of your palate. Of course, the flavour is a little bit taller, so you can feel the yeasty note on top of the malty characters. As you push further forward, it just condenses down a wee bit and then squashes together as you go into that kind of middle third of your palate. So I do like how that goes together in this one. Malty yeasty side of things is very well done once again. Onto the hoppy side of things then. Brain fart. Onto the hoppy side of things with this beer. Nice little bit of earthiness in the back corners of the palate. As you move further forward, there is a little bit of a herbal character in there. So as you move further forward towards the front kind of corners of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a bigger kind of floral aromaticity out of this one. So yeah, the green component overall, I'd say it leans a little bit more towards the floral side of things, but around the front curve of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of wetter, freshly cut grass kind of thing to it. So I really like how that goes together in this beer. So yeah, the way that works is the way that green component goes together in this one is quite nice. I think the more that you drink of it, the kind of wetter, the sort of floral side of the beer goes as well. So that's also quite interesting with this one. And again, I like it. But on the front third of your palate, let's focus on that. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you've got a little bit of a kind of more bread crusty, bready build up there again. You can feel that. Then the base of the front third of your palate is a bit of a smooth, white bready kind of character as well. But on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy, fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So at the back of that, at the back of that front third of your tongue, you do get a little bit of an almost intense passion fruity note out of this one. So I'm wondering if one of the hops in this could be Citra, come to think of it. Because there's just something distinctive about it. So maybe that's what I was getting from the tropical side of things there. But yeah, there is a wee bit of that intense passion fruity note there. And as you move further forward, towards the kind of front, towards the middle of that front third of your tongue, you'll get a wee bit of a mango-y note out of it for sure. There's a little bit of dried apricot and kind of pineapple-y characters in there as well for sure. But then as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, it gets distinctly more kind of lemon lime. I'm pretty sure it's Citra in this, just going from the flavour. I thought it might be the tropical notes that I was getting in the aroma were a little bit different, but I'm pretty sure one of the hops in this is probably Citra. It's just quite distinctive. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this one. There's maybe a wee hint of a kind of orangey character in there as well coming out of the beer. So yeah, maybe a wee bit of an oily orange on the front half of that front third of your palate as well, but for me quite limey, and there is a good bit of zest to that limey character as well, just behind the front tip of the tongue, where you get those nice kind of freshly cut grassy esters out of the beer. So yeah, I think this one goes about its business pretty well as well, to be honest with you. So thumbs up to Newbarns Brewery for this one. So yeah, flavour wise, I think this is pretty solid actually. It's nothing we've not had, or nothing new, I guess we could say, from Newbarns Brewery in that sense. But it's solidly done once again. We know these guys do good paleos and they've delivered. You can't really ask them for much more than that. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for the kind of tasting side. Let's round off the review with the mouthfeel then. So on the the mouthfeel, I would say that this beer is pretty light-bodied, but towards the top end of light-bodied. The carbonation does have a degree of crispness to it, absolutely. Mouthfeel-wise, it's I'd say that overall it's just quite a sort of crisp and clean pale ale. This one, I don't think there's much doubt in my mind about that. So yeah, nice kind of crisp, clean pale ale rather than anything else. But yeah, I think in terms of IBUs, this one does feel a little bit more bitter, so maybe it's about 40, 50 IBUs, something like that. You do get a nice little bit of bitterness lingering there into the aftertaste, particularly the floral side of things. The malt base is kind of, you do get a little bit of a kind of grainy, crisp, bready sort of thing out of it, some smooth bread, and also just a wee bit of sweetness. So the malt base, I think, in this one is quite nice. And like I said, I'm sure there's a bit of golden promise in this. I really would not be surprised by that. And then the front third of your palate has this nice kind of, just has this really nice oily character to it. So yeah, nice oily fruity notes, but quite well balanced between the kind of tropical side and the more citrusy, zesty kind of thing too. So I think Citra is one of the hops in this, I'm pretty sure, from the flavours that we're getting out of this beer. But once again, a really solid, sessionable beer from Newbarns. And you know, these guys are almost, when I think about it, in some ways they remind me a little bit of Williams Brothers, but a little bit more American in a sense. So yeah, if you want session beers in Scotland, Williams Brothers or Newbarns are the two breweries that you really want to hit up for those. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This one was the Supreme Pale Ale, 5% ABV from Newbarns Brewery in Leith in Edinburgh. I forgot to mention earlier though, I think this beer might have been brewed as an original exclusive to Beer Cave Direct, so I'm not sure why I got it in Beer Hive in Edinburgh, but I'm not going to complain. I enjoyed it. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Newbarns Brewery, and we will return to these guys at some point soon. The Supreme Pale Ale turned out to be very nice. Slàinte, Skål, cheers. Check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys on the next review.